Amid the comfort of luxury, someone felt the weight of living a life that didn't feel like their own. An unexpected proposal opened the path to a journey in distant lands, far from any security. Amidst natural challenges and surprising encounters, a transformation occurred that changed everything. The golden light of the setting sun streamed through the enormous windows of the Anderson mansion, illuminating the pensive face of Michael, who observed the frantic movement of New York City from the heights of his penthouse. His fingers drummed restlessly on the Italian marble parapet, while his mind wandered far from the environment of luxury and privilege he had always known. "Michael, your father wants to see you in the office," announced Ruth, the housekeeper who had raised him since he was little, interrupting his thoughts. Her tone of voice carried a mixture of affection and concern that only years of coexistence could explain. Crossing corridors decorated with contemporary artworks and valuable antiques, Michael felt the weight of being the only heir to one of the country's largest environmental conservation entrepreneurs. Jack Anderson was not just his father, but a living legend in the business world, known for transforming nature preservation into a lucrative empire. Jack's office was a perfect reflection of his personality, imposing and at the same time welcoming. Large windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while the walls were decorated with photographs of nature reserves and successful conservation projects. "Sit down, son," said Jack, his deep voice echoing through the room. "We need to talk about your future." Michael sank into the leather armchair, preparing himself for another sermon on family responsibility and tradition, but something in his father's eyes seemed different this time. "You're unhappy, Michael. Don't try to deny it, I see it in your eyes," Jack began, surprising his son with his frankness. "You have everything money can buy, but something is missing, isn't it?" For the first time in a long time, Michael felt truly seen by his father. The words he had kept for so long began to flow. "Dad, I appreciate everything I have, but it's not enough. I feel like I'm living a life that isn't mine, following a path that was laid out for me before I was even born." Jack stood up, walking to the window. The sun had already set, and the city lights were beginning to dot the darkness. "Your mother and I have talked a lot about this," he said, turning to face his son. "We've decided that you need an experience that will help you find your own path." Michael's heart raced. Something in the way his father spoke suggested that it wouldn't be just another summer course at Harvard or an internship at some partner company. "There's a small village in Africa," Jack continued, "where we maintain one of our conservation projects. It's a simple place, far from all this luxury and comfort. We want you to spend some time there." Michael felt a mixture of fear and excitement run through his body. "In Africa? But Dad, what about the company? The commitments?" "The company will still be here when you return," Jack replied with a serene smile. "What we need now is for you to find your own path, your own voice." At that moment, Hannah, Michael's mother, entered the office. Her eyes were teary, but her smile conveyed confidence. "Son, sometimes we need to get lost to find ourselves," she said, approaching to hug him. The news quickly spread through the mansion. The employees whispered in the corridors, some worried, others admiring the family's decision. Ruth, in particular, alternated between moments of maternal concern and pride for her boy's courage. In the days that followed, Michael found himself in a whirlwind of preparations: vaccines, visas, appropriate clothes for the Savannah climate. But more than the practical issues, it was his mind that was in constant turmoil. For the first time in a long time, he felt he was about to do something truly meaningful. On the eve of his departure, while organizing his suitcase with the bare minimum, following the guidelines received, Michael found an old diary in his drawer. The blank pages seemed to invite him to write a new story, his own story. Ruth entered the room bringing a cup of tea. "You know, Michael," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed, "when your parents told me about this idea, I confess I was scared. But now, seeing you like this, so alive, so eager for this adventure, I realize they're right. You need this." Michael hugged the housekeeper, smelling the familiar lavender scent she always wore. "I'm scared too, Ruth, but for the first time, I feel like I'm doing something for myself, not just following the script everyone expected of me." Night was falling over New York City, and Michael stayed awake observing the city lights for the last time before his departure. In his heart, a certainty began to form. His life was about to change completely, and he could hardly wait to discover how. The intense heat of the African savannah, hit Michael like a wave as soon as he stepped off the small plane that had brought him there. The contrast with the air conditioning of the aircraft was brutal, and his first steps on African soil were accompanied by a feeling of dizziness that went beyond the fatigue of the long journey. The village that would be his new home for the next few months was a few hours away, and the journey would be made in a jeep worn by time and use. Makina, his local guide, a middle-aged woman with deep and wise eyes, watched with a half-smile as Michael struggled to accommodate his designer suitcase in the dusty vehicle. "New York seems very far away now, doesn't it?" commented Makina, maneuvering the jeep skillfully through the rough paths. Michael just nodded, his eyes fixed on the landscape unfolding before him. The vastness of the savannah, with its sparse trees and golden grass waving in the wind, was hypnotic. During the journey, Makina began to contextualize Michael about the local reality. "Our village is small, but rich in traditions. People here live simply, but they are happy. You will learn a lot from them if you are willing to listen and observe." The first sight of the village made Michael's heart tighten. The simple houses, some with thatched roofs, others with zinc sheets, formed a semicircle around a common area. Children ran barefoot, stopping their games to observe the newcomer with curiosity. "Your house will be that one," Makina pointed to a modest construction at the edge of the village. "You will share the space with Amadi, one of our elders. He agreed to be your mentor during your stay here." Michael swallowed hard. The house was smaller than his closet in New York. The mud walls and thatched roof seemed too fragile to offer any real protection against the elements. A curtain of colorful fabric served as a door, swaying gently in the breeze. Amadi was sitting on a wooden stool in front of the house, his wrinkled hands skillfully working on local crafts. His face, marked by time, lit up with a genuine smile when he saw Michael. "Welcome, son of the big city," he said in surprisingly fluent English. "I hope you're ready to learn some secrets of simple life." On that first night, lying on a thin mattress on a straw mat, Michael felt silent tears running down his face. The silence was deafening compared to the constant noise of New York. The stars, visible through a small window, seemed brighter and closer than he had ever seen. The following days were a constant test of adaptation. Waking up before sunrise, fetching water from the well, helping with community chores, each task was a challenge for someone who always had employees to do everything. His delicate hands soon began to develop calluses, and his tanned skin began to peel under the relentless sun. It was during one of these mornings of work that Michael met Anna. She was helping other women carry water buckets when their eyes met. There was something different about her, a mixture of strength and delicacy that immediately intrigued him. "You're holding the bucket wrong," she said, approaching with an amused smile. "Let me show you how it's done." Anna had a unique way of making things seem simple. Her small but firm hands adjusted the position of the bucket on Michael's head, and suddenly the weight seemed more balanced. "You're not from here either, are you?" asked Michael, noticing her different accent. "No," Anna replied, her eyes shining with a distant memory. "I ended up here by chance, or maybe by fate. Everyone has their own story to tell." In the days that followed, Michael began to notice subtle changes in himself. His complaints about the heat and discomfort were diminishing, replaced by a genuine curiosity about local customs. Amadi, noticing this transformation, began to share more stories and teachings. One afternoon, while helping in the community garden, Michael heard shouts of joy coming from the common area. A group of children was running towards a couple who had just arrived, Maria and Edward, Anna's parents. They brought supplies and stories from the nearest town. "Her parents are very respected here," commented Amadi, who was working beside Michael. "They chose to live simply, even though they could have a more comfortable life. There's a lot to learn from that choice." Michael watched as Anna hugged her parents, her face lit up with the happiness of reunion. Something inside him stirred, a new and inexplicable sensation. There, covered in dirt and sweat, he began to understand that perhaps true wealth wasn't in the material possessions he had left behind in New York. The days in the village began to gain their own rhythm for Michael. The mornings, once filled with executive meetings and gourmet coffee, were now dedicated to goat care and work on the land. His hands, once occupied only with documents and electronic devices, now knew the weight of the hoe and the rough texture of the ropes used to guide the animals. Anna had become a constant presence in his routine. She appeared at the most unexpected moments, always with an enigmatic smile and some new knowledge to share. "See how the goats behave before the rain," she would say, "or observe the flight of the birds, they always know where to go." One particularly hot morning, as Michael struggled to fix a damaged fence, Anna approached with a canteen of fresh water. "You're doing better than I imagined," she commented, sitting in the shade of a nearby tree. "But you still have a lot to learn." "How did you end up here?" Michael asked, taking advantage of the moment of rest. "Your parents seem so different from the rest of the village." Anna adjusted the colorful scarf that protected her hair from the sun before answering. "My parents were researchers. They came to study the local fauna, but ended up falling in love with the simplicity of this place. They decided to stay when they realized that here they had found something that money couldn't buy." The conversation was interrupted by Makina, who was approaching hurriedly. "Michael, Amadi needs you. It's urgent." Her tone of voice caused immediate uneasiness in Michael. In the small house they shared, Michael found Amadi lying on his mat, visibly debilitated. The elder, always so strong and active, now seemed fragile and vulnerable. "My son," he said in a weak voice, "I need you to take on my responsibilities for a few days. My body is asking for rest." The news of Amadi's indisposition spread quickly through the village. Maria and Edward, Anna's parents, were the first to offer help, bringing medicinal herbs and first aid knowledge. Michael watched attentively as they cared for the elder, feeling helpless in the situation. "He needs proper medical care," Edward whispered to Maria, thinking Michael couldn't hear them. "But the nearest hospital is hours away, and he refuses to leave the village." That night, unable to sleep, Michael went out to walk under the stars. The African sky, so different from what he was used to in New York, seemed vaster and more mysterious than ever. His thoughts were interrupted by strange sounds coming from the savannah. Anna appeared silently by his side. "It's the lions," she explained, noticing his worried expression. "They've been getting closer to the village lately. Something is disturbing their natural territory." "Lions?" Michael felt a shiver run down his spine. The reality of the savannah's dangers suddenly became much more concrete. "Don't worry," Anna smiled, lightly touching his arm. "They rarely come too close. But we need to stay alert, especially with the cattle." In the days that followed, Michael found himself divided between caring for Amadi and taking on the responsibilities the elder had entrusted to him. Each day, he felt the weight of his new obligations, but also a growing sense of purpose. The lessons Amadi had taught him about the land, the animals, and the community now made more sense than ever. One afternoon, while checking on the goats, Michael found Maria collecting plants near the stream. "You know," she said, without raising her eyes from her work, "when we arrived here, we were like you, lost looking for something we didn't even know what it was. But this land, it has a way of showing us what really matters." Michael reflected on her words. He thought of his father, Jack, and the company he had built, focused on environmental conservation. Had he also felt this connection with nature? Was that why he had sent his only son so far away? The sun was beginning to set when Michael returned to the village. From afar, he saw Anna sitting near Amadi's house, softly singing a local melody. His heart raced at the sight of her, and he realized that something was changing inside him. It wasn't just the simplicity of life in the village that was transforming him, but also the presence of this mysterious girl who seemed to carry all the wisdom of the savannah within her. That night, lying on his mat, Michael wrote in his diary, "Perhaps true purpose is not found in grand projects or material achievements, but in the small moments of connection, with the earth, with people, with our own essence." Amadi's condition worsened with each passing day, and Michael felt the weight of responsibility growing on his shoulders. During the nights, as he watched over the elder's restless sleep, his mind wandered between memories of the luxury he had left in New York and the meaningful simplicity he had found in the village. One morning, as Michael was organizing the medicinal herbs that Maria had brought, Amadi woke up with surprising lucidity. "Michael," he called in a weak voice, "I need to tell you something important." The elder gestured for Michael to come closer, his eyes shining with an unusual urgency. "Under my mat," Amadi whispered, "there's a map. It shows the way to a sacred place in the savannah, where rare medicinal plants grow. My family has protected this secret for generations." Michael found the map, a worn piece of leather with ancient markings. Amadi continued, "These plants, could be the answer to many ailments, but the path to them is dangerous. It's lion territory. Michael's heart raced. He knew that this information wasn't just a secret, it was a responsibility, a mission. Before he could ask more questions, Anna appeared at the entrance of the hut, her eyes revealing that she had heard part of the conversation. "I know about these plants," she said, approaching. "My parents have spoken about them, but we've never been able to find them. They say they have extraordinary properties." In the days that followed, Michael and Anna began to secretly plan an expedition to find the plants. Maria and Edward, noticing the whispered conversations between the two young people, observed with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Have you noticed how close they are?" Maria commented to her husband one night. "It reminds me of us when we first arrived here, full of dreams and ideals." Edward smiled, but his eyes revealed concern. "Yes, but it also worries me. The lions are getting closer to the village, and there's something different about their behavior." Tension in the village was increasing. The shepherds reported lion footprints increasingly close to the grazing areas, and the domestic animals were restless. Michael, during his night rounds, could hear the distant roars, more frequent than usual. One afternoon, while Michael and Anna were studying Amadi's map hidden behind the storage hut, they were surprised by a group of children running and shouting, "The lion! The lion is near the stream!" Without thinking twice, Michael ran towards the stream with Anna right behind him. His heart was racing, not from the run, but from fear of what they might find. When they arrived, they saw only recent footprints on the riverbank and some disturbed bushes. "Look at this," called Anna, crouching near one of the footprints. "This lion is limping. See how the mark is deeper on one side." Michael observed the marks carefully. "Do you think it's injured?" "It could be," Anna replied, her eyes scanning the surrounding vegetation. "And an injured animal is much more dangerous. It might be desperate for easy food." That night, during the community dinner, the concern was palpable in the air. The village elders discussed protection measures, while the children were kept close to the houses. Michael noticed how Anna seemed distant, her gaze lost in the direction of the stream. After dinner, she pulled him to a discreet corner. "Michael, what if the place of the medicinal plants and the lion's current territory are the same? What if it's protecting something?" Anna's suggestion made perfect sense. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit in his mind. The lion's behavior, the rare plants, Amadi's map, everything seemed connected somehow. "We need to find out," said Michael, his voice laden with determination. "Not just for the plants that can help Amadi, but also to understand what's happening with the lion. Maybe we can help both." Anna smiled, that smile that always made Michael's heart beat faster. "Tomorrow, before dawn," she whispered, "while everyone is still sleeping. Are you ready?" Michael looked at the hut where Amadi was resting, then at the horizon where the last rays of sun painted the sky red. In his heart, he felt that he was about to discover something much greater than medicinal plants. It was as if the savannah was about to reveal its deepest secrets. The dawn had not yet shown its first signs when Michael found Anna waiting near the water well. She carried a cloth bag with provisions and a determined expression on her face. Amadi's map, carefully wrapped in a piece of leather, weighed in Michael's pocket as if carrying everyone's fate. "I left a note for my parents," Anna whispered, adjusting the band that held her hair. "I don't want them to worry, but we also can't risk them stopping us." They followed in silence through the savannah, guided by the silver light of the stars that were beginning to pale on the horizon. Amadi's map indicated a path that wound between ancient rock formations, each marked with symbols that Anna seemed to instinctively understand. "My father taught me to read the signs of the land," she explained, noticing Michael's curious gaze. "Every stone, every tree tells a story. This is how our ancestors kept their secrets." As they advanced, Michael noticed how Anna moved with a natural grace through the savannah, as if she were part of it. Her movements were precise and silent, while he still occasionally stumbled on exposed roots. The sun was beginning to awaken when they reached an area where the vegetation became denser. Anna stopped abruptly, her body tense. "Look," she whispered, pointing to marks on the ground. Fresh lion tracks crossed their path. "We're close," Michael murmured, consulting the map. The markings indicate a cave near a crescent moon-shaped rock formation. They continued to advance with redoubled caution, every sound of the awakening savannah making their hearts race. The heat was beginning to rise, and with it, the tension in the air. Suddenly, a movement in the vegetation made them freeze. A golden figure passed quickly between the trees, followed by a low, guttural sound. The lion was close, very close. "Don't run," Anna whispered, her hand finding Michael's. "Keep your eyes low, but don't lose sight of it." The animal emerged from the vegetation, its majestic presence filling the air with electric energy. It was an adult lion, and as Anna had predicted, it was limping slightly on one of its hind legs. To both their surprise, the lion didn't show immediate aggression. Instead, its amber eyes studied them with disconcerting intensity. After what seemed like an eternity, the animal turned and began to move away, occasionally looking back. "It wants us to follow it," Anna said, her voice barely containing her excitement. "How can you be sure?" Michael asked, still squeezing her hand. "Trust me. There's something different about its behavior." They followed the lion at a distance, remaining alert. The animal guided them along a winding path to a small cave entrance, partially hidden by dense vegetation. Michael's heart almost stopped when he saw what was inside the cave. It wasn't just the medicinal plants they were looking for, although they were there, growing in small groups in the rock crevices. At the back of the cave, an injured lioness rested, protecting a newborn cub. "Now it all makes sense," Anna whispered, her eyes shining with understanding. He wasn't threatening the village. He was protecting his family and this place. Michael observed the plants growing in the cave. They were exactly as Amadi had described, leaves with a unique silver sheen, flowers of a deep blue that seemed to pulse with life. The ancients said these plants only grow where there's a special connection between all living beings, Anna explained, carefully kneeling to examine the vegetation. The lion isn't just protecting his family, he's guarding a treasure of nature. The sun was already high when they began to collect some of the plants, always with respectful and careful movements. The lion watched them attentively, as if understanding their intentions. "We need to do something for the lioness too," Michael said, noticing how she was breathing with difficulty. "Maybe my parents. Maybe we can bring help." Anna smiled, that smile that illuminated her entire face. "You're different, Michael. A few weeks ago you'd be thinking only about how to profit from these plants." Michael felt his face flush, but he knew she was right. The savannah had transformed him more than he thought possible. There in that cave, faced with a mystery as old as the earth itself, he was finally beginning to understand the true meaning of preservation and respect for nature. The return to the village was marked by a silence laden with meanings. Michael and Anna carried not only the precious medicinal plants, but also the weight of a secret that could change everything. The sun was already high when they spotted the first huts, and the agitation they encountered made it clear that their absence had been noticed. Maria and Eduardo ran to meet their daughter, their faces marked by concern, giving way to relief. "Where have you been?" Maria asked, hugging Anna tightly. "The whole village has been looking for you." Before they could answer, Makina appeared running. "Michael, quick, it's Amadi. He's calling for you." Michael ran to the hut, his heart racing. He found the elder sitting on his mat, more alert than in recent days, but visibly anxious. Seeing the plants in Michael's hands, his eyes filled with tears. "You found them," Amadi whispered, gently touching the silver leaves. "And you came back alive to tell the story." Anna entered the hut soon after, followed by her parents. Eduardo's expression changed when he saw the plants. "This is impossible," he muttered, coming closer to examine them better. "These plants are considered practically extinct. How?" Michael and Anna looked at each other, knowing they needed to tell the truth. Carefully, they reported their discovery. The cave, the plants, and most importantly, the family of lions guarding that natural treasure. "The lioness is injured," Anna explained, her voice trembling slightly. "And there's a cub. That's why the lion has been coming so close to the village. He's desperate to protect his family." Eduardo ran his hand through his graying hair, his researcher's mind already working on the implications of the discovery. "This is extraordinary. Not just the plants, but this interaction between the lions and the vegetation. It's a perfect balance of nature." Maria began preparing a tea with some of the plants, following Amadi's whispered instructions. The sweet and penetrating aroma soon filled the entire hut. "This doesn't belong just to us," she said as she worked. "It's a gift from the earth, and we need to protect it." As Amadi drank the tea prepared by Maria, Michael shared his idea. "We can help the lioness. My father, He has connections with veterinarians specialized in wildlife. We can bring help without revealing the exact location of the plants. What about the trader? Anna asked, her voice laden with concern. The one who offered a reward for the lion? A heavy silence fell over the group. The trader, a man known for his interest in hunting trophies, had offered a considerable sum for information about the whereabouts of the lion that threatened the village. We need to act fast, Eduardo decided. Michael, can you get in touch with your father? The sooner we bring help for the lioness, the sooner this situation will be resolved. Michael nodded, feeling a new determination grow within him. This was his chance to unite the two worlds that were now part of his life, the power and resources of his family in Sao Paulo, and the wisdom and respect for nature he had learned in the village. That night, as the village quieted down, Michael found Anna sitting near the communal fire. The flames danced on her face, highlighting the strength and delicacy of her features. You know, she said without taking her eyes off the fire, when you arrived here I thought you'd be just another rich boy trying to find himself, but you proved to be much more than that. Michael sat down beside her, feeling the heat of the fire and Anna's proximity warming his heart. This land, you all taught me the true meaning of wealth, he replied, his voice low and sincere. The stars shone intensely above them, silent witnesses to a transformation that went far beyond the physical journey. On the horizon, the distant roar of the lion now sounded not as a threat, but as a reminder of the delicate balance they needed to protect. The news of Joaquim Mendonca's arrival spread through the village, like wildfire in the dry savannah. The helicopter landed in a nearby clearing, kicking up dust and causing a commotion among the animals. Michael observed from a distance, his heart torn between the joy of seeing his father and the apprehension of how two such different worlds would meet. Joaquim descended from the helicopter with an elegance that seemed out of place in the simplicity of the savannah. At his side, a woman in a white coat carried a medical bag, Dr. Isabel, one of Africa's most respected wildlife veterinarians. Michael, Joaquim called, opening his arms to his son. The embrace that followed was different from any they had ever shared, more genuine, deeper. You're different, the father observed, studying his son's tanned face and calloused hands. A lot has changed, Dad, Michael replied, leading the newcomers to the village. There's so much I need to show you, so much I need to tell you. Anna was waiting near Amadi's hut, her curious eyes evaluating the visitors. When Michael made the introductions, Joaquim couldn't hide his surprise upon discovering that this simple young woman was the daughter of Maria and Eduardo, researchers he knew by reputation. So you're the famous biologist who abandoned academia to live in the savannah, Joaquim commented, a gleam of admiration in his eyes. Your articles on environmental conservation greatly influenced our business approach. Inside the hut, Amadi was sitting on his mat, stronger after days of drinking the medicinal plant tea. His presence, even in a weakened body, emanated a wisdom that made Joaquim instinctively bow his head in respect. Your son, Amadi said, his voice calm and deep, has been learning the ancient ways. He has found something much more precious than gold in the lands of the savannah. As Michael and Anna explained the situation with the lions and the rare plants, Joaquim listened with growing attention. Dr. Isabel made quick notes, her eyes shining with professional interest. A family of lions protecting rare medicinal plants. It's extraordinary, she commented. We need to act very carefully to not disturb this unique balance. The conversation was interrupted by shouts coming from outside. The trader had arrived at the village with a group of men, all carrying hunting equipment. Michael felt his blood run cold. They had arrived earlier than expected. We need to act now, Anna whispered, squeezing Michael's hand. If they find the cave, Joaquim observed the exchange of glances between his son and Anna, an understanding smile appearing on his face. Michael, he said, placing his hand on his son's shoulder, I think it's time we show the true mission of the Mendonca Company. With natural authority, Joaquim walked out of the hut and towards the group of hunters. His imposing presence and the Mendonca name made the trader visibly retreat. Gentlemen, Joaquim announced, his voice carrying the weight of years of influence in conservationist circles, this area has just been declared a protected natural reserve. Any hunting activity here will be considered an environmental crime. The trader tried to argue, but Joaquim was already on the phone, making calls that would mobilize authorities and the press. Within hours, the story of an extraordinary scientific discovery. Rare medicinal plants protected by a family of lions would begin to circulate, making any hunting attempt in the region impossible. "You planned this?" Michael asked his father, amazed at how quickly the situation had been resolved. "Actually," Joachim replied with a smile, "it was your mother. She said you would find something special here, something that would change not just you, but all of us." As always, she was right. At the end of that afternoon, as Dr. Isabel prepared for her first visit to the Lion's Cave, Michael watched his father animatedly discussing preservation projects for the region with Maria and Eduardo. Anna approached, intertwining her fingers with his. "Your worlds aren't so different after all," she commented softly. "Both seek to protect what is precious, just in different ways." Michael nodded, feeling a deep peace settle in his heart. The savannah had taught him that the greatest riches aren't always where we think we'll find them, and that sometimes we need to get completely lost to find our true path home. The dawn brought new energy to the village. Dr. Isabel, after a night of preparations, was ready for her first expedition to the Lion's Cave. Michael and Anna would serve as guides, while Joachim coordinated an environmental protection team that had just arrived to demarcate the new reserve. "Remember," Dr. Isabel instructed, adjusting her equipment, "we need to maintain the greatest possible distance. The lioness is injured and has a cub. This makes her extremely protective and potentially dangerous." The group followed the same path that Michael and Anna had discovered days earlier. The savannah seemed different now, as if responding to the presence of so many people committed to its preservation. The very air seemed lighter, charged with hope. During the walk, Joachim approached his son. You know, Michael," he began, his voice laden with contained emotion, "when your mother suggested sending you here, I had my doubts. Now I see that she saw something I couldn't see." "What exactly, Dad?" "That you needed to discover for yourself the true meaning of our work, not through reports and meetings, but with your hands in the earth and your heart open." Anna, who was walking ahead with Dr. Isabel, stopped abruptly. "Look," she whispered, pointing to fresh marks on the ground. "The lion was here recently." The veterinarian examined the footprints with professional interest. "He's watching us," she concluded. "He probably followed us since we left the village." As if to confirm her words, a low roar echoed through the vegetation. The lion emerged from the shadows, its majestic bearing even more impressive in the daylight. Its eyes studied the group with a mixture of caution and curiosity. "Extraordinary," Dr. Isabel murmured. "It's not showing aggression. It's almost as if it understands our intentions." The animal began to move slowly, limping slightly, guiding the group as it had done with Michael and Anna days before. When they reached the cave, the lioness was there, her breathing still labored, but her eyes alert. The cub played nearby, oblivious to the tension of the moment. Dr. Isabel worked with impressive efficiency, using a rifle with tranquilizer darts to sedate the lioness. "The injury isn't as severe as we feared," she announced after the examination. "With proper treatment, she'll recover completely." As the veterinarian worked, Joachim observed the medicinal plants growing on the cave walls. "This is more than a scientific discovery," he commented. "It's a symbol of how nature finds ways to protect itself if we give it that chance." Maria and Eduardo, who had arrived with a second team of researchers, immediately began documenting the plants and their unique habitat. "We need to understand how this symbiosis developed," Eduardo explained. "There might be other similar locations that need protection." The day passed in an intense rhythm of activities. Conservation teams marked the boundaries of the new reserve, researchers collected data, and Dr. Isabel continued the lioness's treatment. Michael observed everything with a mixture of pride and admiration, realizing how his two worlds were merging harmoniously. At the end of the afternoon, as the sun painted the sky in orange hues, Anna found Michael sitting on a rock near the cave. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sitting beside him. "About how all this started," he replied, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "I came here feeling lost, thinking I was being punished. Now I realize it was the greatest gift I could have received." Anna smiled, that smile that still made Michael's heart beat faster. "Sometimes we need to get lost to find our true path," she said, repeating the words her mother used to say. At that moment, the lion appeared at the entrance of the cave, observing the couple with its wise eyes. The cub played between its paws, while the lioness, already awake from the sedation, rested inside the cave. It was an image of perfect harmony, nature and humanity, strength and gentleness, protection and freedom. "You know what's most amazing?" Michael commented, intertwining his fingers with Anna's. "How everyone assumed a role in this story. My father with his resources, your parents with their knowledge, Dr. Isabel with her expertise, even the lions guarding this treasure for so long. And you," Anna added, "being the bridge between all these worlds." In the week that followed the arrival of the conservation team, the village transformed into a center of scientific and environmental activity. Tents were set up to house researchers, sophisticated equipment shared space with traditional huts, and the sound of animated conversations in various languages filled the air. Amadi, now considerably stronger thanks to the medicinal plants, observed the changes with a serene smile. "Look," he said to Michael during one of their nightly conversations, "how ancient wisdom and modern knowledge can work together when there is mutual respect." The lioness's recovery progressed extraordinarily under Dr. Isabel's care. The treatment combined modern veterinary techniques with the use of medicinal plants, creating a unique protocol that was drawing attention from the international scientific community. "It's incredible," Dr. Isabel commented during a meeting with the team. "The properties of these plants accelerate the healing process in a way I've never seen before. This could revolutionize the treatment of wild animals." Joaquim, who had extended his stay in the village, spent hours in meetings with Maria and Eduardo, discussing the implementation of a permanent research center. "Imagine," he proposed, his eyes shining with enthusiasm, "a place where modern science and traditional knowledge can coexist and complement each other." One afternoon, while helping organize the collected data, Michael found Anna sitting in the shade of an ancient tree, drawing in her notebook. As he approached, he saw that she was sketching a project for the future research center. "You have talent," he commented, admiring the precise lines and attention to detail. "I learned from my mother," Anna replied, blushing slightly. "She always said we need to visualize our dreams before we can realize them." Anna's design was impressive in its simplicity and functionality. It incorporated traditional elements of local architecture with modern, sustainable technologies. Circular structures inspired by the village huts would house laboratories and study rooms, while open areas would allow for traditional meetings and ceremonies. "This is exactly what we need," Joaquim exclaimed when he saw the drawings. "Something that respects and preserves the essence of this place while allowing us to study and protect it." Maria observed the interaction between her daughter and the Mendoncas with teary eyes. "You know," she commented to Eduardo, "when we left the university to live here, many called us crazy. Now I see we were just a little ahead of our time." The news of the discovery of the medicinal plants and the family of lions that protected them began to attract international attention. Journalists tried to gain permission to visit the area, but Joaquim and the village leaders maintained strict control over access to the region. "We can't allow this to become a circus," Joaquim argued in a meeting with the village council. "The preservation of this unique ecosystem must be our priority." One night, as the village prepared for a traditional celebration, Michael found his father contemplating the sunset. "Dad," he called, hesitant, "I need to tell you something." Joaquim turned to his son, noting the seriousness in his voice. "Go ahead, Michael. I want to stay, not forever, but for longer. There's still so much to learn, so much work to be done." To his surprise, Joaquim smiled. "I already knew," he said, placing his hand on his son's shoulder. "In fact, your mother and I were already talking about it. You've found your path, Michael, a path that unites our business legacy with something much deeper and more meaningful." The sound of drums began to echo through the village, calling everyone to the celebration. Anna appeared, dressed in traditional clothes, her eyes shining under the light of the fire that was beginning to be lit. "Come," she called. "Today we celebrate not only the healing of Amadi and the lioness, but the birth of something new, something that unites us all." Michael and Joaquim followed Anna to the center of the village, where the fire now burned high, illuminating the smiling faces of the gathered villagers and researchers. Amadi occupied a place of honor, with Maria and Eduardo by his side. Dr. Isabel had brought news that the lioness was almost completely recovered. That night, under the stars of the savannah, different worlds united in a dance of celebration and hope. The future, once so uncertain, now seemed to shine with infinite possibilities. The news of Helena's pregnancy, Michael's mother, arrived on a quiet October morning. Joachim had returned to São Paulo weeks earlier, leaving his son responsible for supervising the start of construction on the research center. Upon receiving the message, Michael felt a wave of conflicting emotions, joy for the arrival of a brother or sister, and a sudden feeling of even greater responsibility. "You should go visit them," Anna suggested, finding Michael sitting by the stream, his favorite place to think. "Your mother will need support, and you can take the opportunity to personally present our project to the investors." The last few months had transformed not only Michael but the entire region. The research center project, based on Anna's drawings, had evolved into something even more ambitious. A complex that would include not only laboratories and study areas, but also a veterinary hospital specialized in wild animals and an environmental education center. "It's amazing how everything has changed," Michael reflected, observing in the distance the markings where the center would be built. "6 months ago, I was just a rich, lost boy. Now you're a man with purpose," Anna completed, sitting beside him. "Someone who has learned to unite the best of both worlds." The family of lions, now fully recovered, had established their territory in an area near the cave of medicinal plants. Dr. Isabel, before leaving, had installed a discreet monitoring system that allowed them to track their movements without interfering with their natural habitat. Maria and Eduardo had become fundamental pieces in the project, combining their academic knowledge with the traditional wisdom of the village. Their research on the properties of medicinal plants was already beginning to yield promising results, with potential applications that went far beyond the treatment of wild animals. "You know what's most incredible?" Anna asked as they walked back to the village. "How each person found their role in this story. Even the trader who wanted to hunt the lions now works as a tour guide in the region, showing people the importance of preservation. Amadi, fully recovered, had become a kind of spiritual consultant for the project, ensuring that development did not deviate from its fundamental principles. His simple hut was now a meeting point, where modernity and tradition fused in deep conversations about the future of the region. "Michael," he called as the couple approached his hut, "the spirits of the savannah told me you are restless." Michael smiled, still impressed by the elder's ability to read people. "I received news from home," he explained. "My mother is expecting a baby." Amadi's face lit up. "Ah, a new life, another link in the chain that binds your family to this land. You must go, son, but don't worry. Your place here will be kept." The decision to temporarily return to São Paulo was not easy, but Anna surprised Michael with an unexpected proposal. "I'll go with you," she announced. "I can personally present the architectural projects to the investors and meet your mother. Besides," she hesitated, a soft blush coloring her cheeks, "it's time I got to know your world too." The news of both their travels caused a commotion in the village. Maria prepared a small blessing ceremony, while Eduardo made sure that all the project documentation was in order for the presentations in São Paulo. On the eve of their departure, Michael and Anna made a final visit to the cave of medicinal plants. The lion, as if sensing their presence, briefly appeared at the entrance, its majestic gaze seeming to convey a silent message of protection. "See?" Anna whispered, squeezing Michael's hand. "Even he understands that sometimes we need to leave to come back stronger." That night, the entire village gathered for a celebration. The drums sounded different stories, stories of departure and return, of transformation and growth, of love and purpose found in the most unexpected places. Under the starry sky of the savannah, Michael embraced Anna, feeling in his heart that this was not an end, but the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. The journey that had begun as a solitary search for meaning had transformed into something much greater, a shared mission of preservation, knowledge and union between different but complementary worlds. The arrival in São Paulo was a reverse culture shock for Michael. The city that once represented his entire universe now seemed strangely small, despite its skyscrapers and endless avenues. Anna, by his side, observed everything with curious eyes, absorbing every detail of this new world. "It's so different from what I imagined," she commented as the car approached the Mendonça mansion. "Everything seems so organized." Helena was waiting for them at the entrance, her pregnancy already visible under her elegant dress. Upon seeing Michael, her eyes filled with tears, not just from missing him, but from the evident transformation in her son. The lost young man who had left months ago had returned as a confident and determined man. "My son," she whispered, embracing him for a long time. Then she turned to Anna with a welcoming smile. "And you must be the young woman who helped transform my boy into a real man." The days that followed were a whirlwind of meetings and presentations. The research center project caused a sensation among investors, especially when Anna explained, with her eloquent simplicity, how the proposed architecture respected both the natural environment and local traditions. "It's impressive," commented one of the directors after a particularly successful presentation. "You're not just proposing a research center, you're creating a new model of environmental conservation." Regina, the housekeeper who had raised Michael, proudly observed the changes in her boy. One afternoon, as he showed Anna old family photos, Regina approached with a tea tray. "You know, Michael," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed, "I always knew you would find your way. I just didn't imagine it would take going so far to discover something so close to your heart." Helena, despite her advanced pregnancy, made a point of actively participating in discussions about the project. Her public relations experience proved invaluable in establishing connections with international environmental organizations. "It's as if everything is falling into place," she commented during a family dinner. "The conservation legacy your father built, the traditional wisdom of the village, the scientific knowledge of Maria and Eduardo, and now you two, uniting all these elements." One night, as they walked through the mansion's garden, Anna surprised Michael with a profound reflection. "You know what's most incredible? How we had to meet in the savannah to truly understand our own worlds." Michael nodded, thoughtful. "It's like Amadi always says, sometimes we need to get lost to find ourselves." The news of the full funding approval for the research center arrived during a video call with Maria and Eduardo. The couple could barely contain their emotion as they watched their daughter presenting the final plans alongside Michael. "You did it," Maria said, her voice choked. "You achieved much more than a project. You created a bridge between worlds." On the day before their scheduled return to the village, Joachim called Michael and Anna for a conversation in his office. The same office where months earlier he had communicated the decision to send his son to Africa. "I have something for you," he said, handing over a thick envelope. Inside were official documents establishing a special fund for the preservation of the village region, ensuring its protection for generations. "Dad," Michael began, emotional. "Don't say anything," Joachim interrupted. "You showed me that true success isn't just in the numbers, but in the impact we have on the world. This is my gift to you, the guarantee that you'll be able to continue this important work." Anna, always so strong, couldn't hold back her tears. "Thank you, Mr. Mendonca. This means—" "Please," he smiled, "call me Joachim. After all, we're family now." That night, the last in São Paulo before returning to the village, Michael and Anna climbed to the mansion's terrace. The city glowed under the night sky, so different from the starry savannah they had left behind. "It's strange," Anna said, embracing Michael. "Now I understand why you felt lost here. But I also understand why you needed to come back." A year passed since that night on the Mendonca Mansion terrace. The Savannah Research and Conservation Center, as it was officially named, now stood majestically in the African landscape, its circular structures harmoniously integrated into the natural environment, exactly as Anna had dreamed in her first sketches. Michael observed the sunset from the veranda of his new house, built with the same red clay as the traditional huts, but incorporating modern, sustainable technologies. Anna was by his side, her hand gently resting on her belly that was beginning to show the first signs of pregnancy. "It seems like it was yesterday that you arrived here completely lost," she smiled, intertwining her fingers with his. The sound of an approaching car caught their attention. It was the Jeep bringing Helena, Joachim, and little Sophia, Michael's sister, who was now completing her first year of life. The family came regularly to the village, dividing their time between São Paulo and Africa, creating a permanent bridge between the two worlds. "Michael! Anna!" Helena shouted, getting out of the car with Sophia in her arms. The girl, with her dark curls and bright eyes, already showed the same love for nature that had transformed her brother. The village was in celebration. The first anniversary of the center would coincide with the traditional blessing ceremony for the baby Anna was expecting. Amadi, now even wiser and serener, had prepared special rituals for the occasion. Maria and Eduardo, who coordinated the research at the center, had transformed the place into a world reference in integrated conservation studies. Scientists from various countries came to learn how to combine traditional knowledge with modern technology, always respecting the delicate balance of the ecosystem. The family of lions still inhabited the region of the medicinal plants cave, now protected as a sacred area. The cub they had met was already a young lion, and new cubs played under the watchful eye of their parents. "Come," Amadi called, his voice carrying the same strength as always. "It's time to start the celebration." The center of the village was decorated with lanterns and wildflowers. Drums began to sound, their ancestral rhythm echoing through the savannah. Villagers and researchers from the center mingled into a single community, united by the same purpose of preservation and respect. "Michael," Joachim called, approaching his son with Sophia in his arms, "your mother and I were talking. We've decided to transfer the company headquarters here." Michael looked at his father, surprised. "But Dad, what about São Paulo?" "São Paulo will always be there," Joaquin smiled. "But the future is here in what you've built, in what you're still going to build." The night progressed and stories multiplied around the bonfire. Helena told Sophia how her brother had transformed. Maria and Eduardo shared their discoveries about the healing properties of the cave plants. Dr. Isabel, who had returned for the celebration, reported impressive cases of wild animal recovery. In a quiet moment, Michael and Anna moved away from the group a bit, walking to their special place near the stream. The full moon illuminated the savannah, and the distant roar of the lions sounded like a blessing. "You know," Michael said, embracing Anna from behind, his hands resting on her belly, "when I arrived here I thought I was being punished, that I had lost everything. But in reality, Anna completed, turning to face him, you were just beginning to find your true path." The gentle night wind carried the scent of wildflowers and the sound of drums. In the savannah, the stars shone with a unique intensity, silent witnesses to a story of transformation, love, and discovery. And so under the African sky, Michael finally understood that sometimes one needs to get completely lost to find not only oneself, but also a greater purpose, true love, and a way to make a difference in the world. Dear listeners, we hope that Michael and Anna's journey has touched your hearts. This is not just a love story, but a narrative about transformation, purpose, and the union between different worlds. If you were moved by this adventure in the African savannah, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give your like. Every day, we bring new stories that explore the complexities of life and the beauty of personal discoveries. Leave your comment telling us which moment touched your heart the most. After all, as Michael and Anna taught us, sometimes we need to get lost to find our true path. Until next time.